I'm Paul Dowman, and my company is called OK Grow, and we build web and mobile apps with full stack JavaScript. So for the past 2 years, that's been pretty much exclusively Meteor, but now we are doing a lot of React with Meteor. And I think I'm going to talk more about this, but the path forward for a lot of Meteor developers is now including React, and we'll get into that very shortly. So if you're building a React app, there's a lot of decisions you have to make, right? Like, what even are all these things? Like, you're gonna have to pick GraphQL. You're gonna have to integrate all these things. You need a back end. Maybe it's Node. Maybe it's something else. You're gonna probably have Webpack to like put it all together. A lot of decisions to make. A bit of research to do. A bit of configuration all together, and that's great. I think these are all like really the way forward for like probably every level of the stack. They're really blazing a lot of trails, and even people that are not using these tools are being influenced by the concepts and things that React has brought forward. But as we know, like, this stuff changes a lot and changes frequently. For example, how many people here have built your own Flux implementation, right? And you're going to probably end up wanting to like move to the more standard things as they become accepted and standard. But I have a rule, and I like to be using the best thing that I can be using for all the time. Whatever's the best tool, I want to be using it. I'm not afraid of being on the like very bleeding edge of things. But at the same time, my rule is that whenever I like jump to something new, it has to make me more productive, not less. So this is why I think that Meteor is a good choice with React, because it gets you like a lot of the infrastructure more. It gets you from zero to like something working very quickly, and then you can later on start swapping out all the different parts as you need to. And I'll get into that. So what is Meteor? Okay, so it provides the view layer, which has traditionally been something called Blaze. And Blaze was Meteor's own view layer, but now React is becoming very popular, and it's probably, I think, the default choice for most people starting a new Meteor app now. It is for us at OK Grow. And then Meteor gives you everything else in the rest of the stack. So that includes your client-side state manager. So you can swap out any of these things if you want to do a little bit more work, but you're activating yourself. So like, you want to use Redux, you can do all that. But what I'm going to show you right now is kind of the default stack that you would get. So client-side state manager, which is called Tracker, and Minimongo is the other part. So then there's DDP, which is the protocol that the server and the client speak, and this is over a WebSocket connection. It's always real time, and all data changes are pushed as they happen down to the client. Node.js on the back end, and all of the infrastructure to make the live data updates happen. And then it's also a build system. So like I said, every one of these parts of the stack are constantly evolving. When Meteor started 4 years ago, there was really not even a good choice for like, there was not a comparable choice to what Meteor offered, I think, in most of them. But as time goes on, a lot of the different parts of the stack are sort of becoming more standard. There's sometimes becoming like a more accepted thing, and like the Meteor developers, their philosophy as well, like, we don't want to compete with something like React that is bigger, and the same goes for every level of the stack. So they just want to take whatever's the most standard, and I think the way that Meteor seems to be evolving is more toward like a curator of whatever's best in the JavaScript world. So, for example, DDP, this protocol between the server and the client, it's kind of turning. Well, they've announced that they're building right now a GraphQL implementation, and it will be a reactive GraphQL implementation. So you'll still get the same live updates that you would expect from Meteor. So anyway, let's get into it. I want to show you guys some code. So we're going to build a very quick chat app. And I'm going to start with, let's make this bigger. I'm going to start with a couple of React components, super simple React app. And then I'm just going to show you how easy it is to put in the infrastructure to make that a whole full stack app. All right. Let's make this bigger. Can you guys read that? No, bigger. How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. All right. Great. So here, this is not how you would build your own React app, pulling on all these things with script tags and whatever, but this is just like a very simple one-file React app. Just single web page with an inline script. It's got two React components. One is a message, and really the message, this is the core of it. Who here is totally new to React? So this will help me figure out how much to like explain of the React stuff. Okay, we got a few. Just to cover that off quickly, the React component, you probably know that there's something called JSX, and it mixes HTML with JavaScript. You can think of it as this all gets rendered down into JavaScript eventually anyway, but this is kind of like a way of writing it in your inline. The key point is essentially this component here goes from here to here, and what it does is it returns something that ends up being like an LI element in your HTML with a couple of dynamic things that get inserted into it. So we've got an LI, that's the message, and we've got a message list, which is from here to here. And the core of this is like a header, a UL, and then this here, which is going to render a whole list of messages. Right? So it's going to take that message component and render a whole bunch of them. So here we have a message list, which is going to be this entire thing, and then each one of these is the message component. Right? This is totally hard-coded. And as you can see here, we've got something called getMessages, which returns just a hard-coded array. All right, so I think what we want to do next is turn that into something a little bit more dynamic. So step one is I'm just going to take the same static thing and I'm going to move it into, I'm going to create a new Meteor app, throw that static stuff in, and then we will replace the static stuff with something dynamic. All right, I'm going to move to command line. I got to kill what was running there. Okay, let's make that bigger. Okay, if it's not big enough, let me know. So I've got a little cheat sheet that I'm just going to be like cutting and pasting some commands and codes, some commands and code from, just to avoid you having to watch my typos and stuff. But so first thing we're going to do is Meteor create. This is just the command to create a new Meteor app. All right, there we go. Now we're going to CD into the new app that we created, and I've got 3 files. I'm going to Meteor add React, which is going to add the React component. Now, while this is going, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Meteor's packaging system. Previously, well, when Meteor got started, NPM wasn't anything like what it is now. And out of necessity, and also because they support full stack packages, which means like a Meteor package can include client side stuff and server side all together. Anyway, for various reasons, they had their own package system. It's now moving towards using NPM. You can totally integrate NPM right now, but now there's both. And I think eventually it'll be only NPM. The next release of Meteor, which is I think coming out sometime within a month or so, we'll have better support for that. But anyway, it's all changing pretty quickly and becoming more and more standard. So like Meteor is now becoming a lot closer to the standard JavaScript ecosystem. So for now, we're adding things from Meteor's own repository, but you can, and like in the future will do that more and more, is add them directly from NPM. Okay, so we're going to also add moment.js because we're going to use it for something small. And then I'm just going to like remove some of the files that were automatically created and replace them with our JavaScript components. Okay, now with this stuff out of the way, we're going to type Meteor to start up the app. And it's going to stay running in the background there. And start up another shell to do a few other commands here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go, first thing I'm going to do is open this new app in my editor. And I've got a couple of files. Okay, so the file list is, it doesn't get bigger when I make my font bigger in Atom, so it's hard to read, but what you can see here is I created some empty files. Message.jsx, messagelist.jsx, and demo.jsx, which is going to be the root of our app. So let's just like copy the components from our static file. We'll get the stuff quickly out of the way so that we can start actually doing the interesting part. So this is the message. I'm going to put it in my message component. Okay, I'm going to go to the message list and I'm going to copy that. There we go. Whoops. Message list. Okay, so now I've got my two components. And what I need to do is actually make them run. So if you recall, inside our HTML file, now for anyone that hasn't used React much, this is the important part here. This is what causes us to actually render the React components into the DOM, into the page. So we're going to take our message list component, and we're going to insert it into the document that has the ID. Insert it into the DOM element that has the ID render target. And if you look upwards in this static app, we've got just an empty, in this static page, we've got an empty div with the ID render target. Making sense so far, everybody? Okay. And just shout out or stop me if you've got questions, okay? So we're going to have to do the equivalent of this thing, this React DOM.render. We're going to have to do that in our Meteor app. And the way to do that is going to be by taking, oops, we're going to do this. Okay, so basically what this says is, if Meteor.isClient this is something built into Meteor because Meteor code can be shared on the client and the server. You would never structure your app the way I'm going to be doing it here. I'm just trying to get a lot of things done a little bit more quickly without having to have too much structure. Normally you would have like the code that's going to run on the client would be in a separate place in your app. It would be under a folder called client or something like that. But another way of doing it is just do this if statement. If it is client, then run this code. And so the next thing we run is we do meteor.startup. I'll make that a little bit bigger for you. Meteor.startup says run this when the app has started up. So this means after DOM ready and everything's ready to go. Now we run the next thing. So we're going to have the exact same line, this like React DOM.render. We're going to render our message list into the element with ID render target. So far, this is exactly the same as what we had in our static single page React app. And let's go and see if it's actually working. So we go to localhost 3000. Got to restart it. It's running. All right. Actually, that did not work. We got an exception. And I'm going to make make that bigger so you guys can also see. Container is not a DOM element. And you know what happened? It looks like I forgot to actually add my root, the element. It can't find the element. So let's go into our HTML file and get rid of this syntax that you see here is Blaze. We're just going to get rid of that. That's Meteor's original view system called Blaze. We're not going to use that. We're going to say, welcome to Meteor plus React. And we're going to insert the same div that we had in our static page. So here we go. So this is the root page that the app is serving. So remember now that Meteor's running, we've got a Node.js server. It's serving up this thing as the root, and it's going to do a bunch of magic. It's not magic, but it's going to helpfully insert all the right JavaScript libraries and things that you need into the page for you. So it's going to insert the React libraries, Moment.js, which I already added. All these things, they're going to be inserted for you. So it's going to start this up, and then it's going to go run this thing here as soon as the DOM is ready. Okay, so we are rendering the message list element into this div here. Clear so far? All right, cool. So the message list element, here it is again, and there's the message. Okay, let's see if it's working right now. Okay, perfect. It is working. Forgot our styles. I'm just going to cut and paste a whole bunch of styles, and then we'll never have to think about that again. Okay. That should reload in a second. So here's another thing. A lot of you guys are probably used to Webpack. So if you're doing a lot of React work right now, you're probably using Webpack. Meteor has had the hot reload thing for like a few years. Webpack now is actually better. It's way faster because it reloads less because of modules. Modules are now coming out in the new version of Meteor that's going to be shipping within a month or so. So the bottom line is like it's temporarily a bit slower, and I think that's going to change again very soon. So here we go. We're back to the exact same thing, only instead of being loaded straight from an HTML file on disk, it's actually being served up by a Node app with everything coming through a package manager properly as it should be instead of loaded in script tags. But exactly the same static stuff. So really not a big improvement too much so far, but now we've just got the infrastructure in place to start building an app. So the first thing we're going to want to do is, instead of having these hard-coded messages, we're going to want to, oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, we're building a chat app. Okay, this is going to be like a live chat app, and so that's going to be something that will be a lot more useful when it's real time, so you don't have to refresh the page to see what your friends have been writing, etc. So, and that's something that Meteor does very well. So the first thing we need to do is we need a database to store our chat messages in. Now, Meteor by default supports MongoDB. That's the main database that works with it. You can make it work with other databases as well, but if you want to like get the sort of like really quick out of the box, everything works quickly experience, MongoDB is the way to go, and I think it's a good choice for a lot of things anyway. So what we do in MongoDB is we create something called a collection. So now if you're not used to MongoDB, and I'm going to go over to my this file. This is the demo. This file is called demo.jsx. This is the main starting point for our app. Okay. So if you're not used to MongoDB, you have collections, which are somewhat analogous to, say, a table in a relational database, a SQL database, if that's what you're used to. Except that it's not in table structure. It is like MongoDB is a document-oriented database. So think of it as like a blob of JSON or a structured, trees and arrays and whatever. So you can just put whatever you want in there. You don't have to give it a schema. That's the other thing. You might want to have a schema in there, especially at your app level, but I'm not going to get into that. So what we're doing here is we're creating a new collection. Actually, this is this should say mongo.collection. That's the current way of doing it. So this is creating a new MongoDB collection. It's called messages, and that's all there is to it. Now, notice that this code is outside of the isClient block. So this is going to run on the client and on the server. So now we've got, and MongoDB was installed as part of the development environment setup. So now we've got a MongoDB database with a collection called messages on the server side. And on the client side, we have a cache that is actually going to mirror the data from the server. And later, depending on how much time we have and how quickly we get through this stuff, I can also show you how to not mirror all of it, because that's obviously a security problem. But anyway, for right now, everything that happens on the server side is going to be automatically synced to the client's cache, which is where we're going to use it. So let's go over to the browser again, and let's say we're going to insert some stuff into this database. So I'm going to say, can you read that? Okay, so we're going to say messages.insert, and we're inserting an object into messages, and this object has, so this part that I've highlighted here is the object. It's got a couple of fields. One is called time, and one is called text. So we're inserting something with two properties, time and text. Time is going to be just a new date, which will give us the current time right at this instant. And the text says, hey, what is this Meteor thing? All right, I'm going to hit enter. And I'm just in the console, so we have no UI for this right now, but I'm just sort of manipulating data in the console. And we get back an ID, so it was inserted. So if I say messages.find.fetch, it will return the data that's currently in there, and there it is. So I've got an ID, I've got my message, and I've got the time. Now, if I were to open a new window, so now I've got two, and let's say I open my console on this one, and I do the same thing, messages.find.fetch, I've got the same data. Now, if I insert another one that says, let's say, another message, now I've got two. If I go back to my other window, I haven't reloaded or done anything, and I rerun this find.fetch, now I can see there's two objects. So there you can see the data is being synced back and forth from the server to all the clients. We've got something in place that's just by default syncing all of it, which is totally insecure, but that'll be the next step to fix. So we've got data in the database, but we've still got this hard-coded stuff. So the next step will be to change that so that we want this React component to start loading data from the database. So we're going to go back to the message list component, and this may not be the most ideal architecture here, but it's simple and straightforward. What I've just done is, we used to have this get messages function here. This returns a hard-coded array. So instead of that, I've done two things. I've added the React Meteor data mixin, which is the thing that's going to basically cause the reactivity it's going to cause, it's your bridge between the application state in the Meteor app and React, so that everything will be re-rendered when your data changes. And I've added this function called getMeteorData, which is returning an object with one key called messages, and pardon me, it's just doing messages.find.fetch. If you recall from, there we go, if we recall from, oh no, over here, when we did messages.find.fetch, that's the thing that basically queries the database. You could add some parameters to, like query to not return all results, but that's what this is doing currently, returning all of them. We do not want a semicolon there. Okay, so let's see if this is going to work now. I've got a syntax error somewhere. Oh, okay, not anymore. It was just temporarily there. Okay, Oh, this, and then I need to do one other thing. So I got rid of my function that was returning the hard-coded data. It's still being referenced here. So instead of this.getMessages, I'm going to say this.data.messages. Now this key messages is the same thing from here. So if you're not familiar with React, I just want to, this is like probably a common thing that you might have seen otherwise, but this map thing is, we're iterating over all of the elements in the array here, all of the results that came back from our database in this case. And for each one, this is ES6 syntax, for each one of them we're running this function. It gets the message, each one at a time, and it renders the message component. So for each message, we end up using the message component and passing in the message to it. So now the message component, which looks like this, is going to have a message given to it, and it's going to print out an li containing the time and the text of the message. So there it is. These are the dynamic messages. So now if I go in and I insert another one, and I say, there we go. So and if I had another browser window open, or one of you guys did, then it would appear instantly there as well. Cool. So that was pretty painless to get the backing of a database with real-time updates, and I don't know, let's see, what else do we have? All the build stuff, so we don't have to mess around with Webpack and all of that. And I should emphasize again that you can shave lots of yaks and swap out every level of everything and customize it all as much as you want, but I'm kind of a big believer of just doing the thing that get me at least a prototype or whatever quickly when I'm starting something new. So at OKGrow, we build apps for clients. We build for our time, and I really feel the pain of shaving yaks and setting up things that we've done time and time, we would have to do over and over for every client. So I really like just to get to step one very, very quickly, but also know that we can customize things at some point whenever it becomes necessary. Did I see a question over there?
Yeah, just a quick question. Is it not true that Facebook and React are sort of moving away from mixins in general?
Yeah, yep, and this may change. So doing it by mixins, I don't know, the argument at the moment is that React's, yeah, you know what, I don't really know. I think that might change, and I think it would probably not change the way your app, it wouldn't be a hard thing to refactor out if it did. So currently that's the way to do it. And again, that's how you do it when you're using the rest of, when you're using, say, Meteor's tracker and mini Mongo. You can also use Redux. You can do more of the React ecosystem stack custom. So you could do Redux and have reducers that are listing on changes from the DDP events when new data is coming from the server. But if you're going to use the tracker, the kind of standard Meteor way of doing that stuff, then this is how you'll do that. And yeah, and it may change. Cool. Any other questions so far? All right. Does it make sense so far? We've got taken those two React components and basically just made this one change, which is, just to review it, we've made this one change, which is added this special mix-in, and then written our function that gets the data from the database. Currently, that data is synced. All of it is synced right now because we've got a package added that's called auto publish. It's just publishing everything from the database. We would change that, and in fact, we will do that in just a minute. So I want to. Okay. So any questions about that? Cool. All right. Now, we want to do one more important thing, which is we want to be able to actually add messages. It's not that useful if we have to go in the console to be able to use our chat app. So let's add this form. We're going to take this form, add it to our message list component. So I've just added a new function here called render form. Right? Render form returns a form element with a single input. The input is just a text input. Now to use this render form, I want to, let's say I'm going to put it between the list and the header. I'm just going to say this dot render form, and that should be it. That's going to reload. Yeah, I know you Webpack guys are like, that's like the slowest reload I've ever seen, but it does work, and it will probably become a lot faster when module support gets in there. So there it is. And one more thing, when I submit this form right now, it's not really gonna be able to do anything. Let's look at the code we've got there. So we're just rendering a form. That form, we need to actually handle the submission of that form. For anybody that's new to this style of programming where everything's happening in the client side, just like think about it this way. In the old way of doing things, when you submit a form, the browser sends data to the server, reloads a new page, which is the result that comes back from the server. That's what the browser wants to do. And using React, what you're going to do is you're going to say, you're going to instead of allowing the browser to submit the form the way it wants to, you're going to catch it. You're going to handle an event. You're going to handle that submit event and say, okay, browser, stop. You've done enough. I'm going to take over. You take the data out of the form, do whatever you want with it, and you don't allow the browser to do what it wants to do. So in order to do that, we have to. Here's the code for it. I'm just going to paste it in here. This is the function that will do that. So first thing we're going to do is event.prevent default. That's the thing that says, browser, I know you want to like submit this to the server and reload the page. Don't do it. Just stop. Now then we take over. So we find the DOM node in this component that has the text input, and we take the value out of it, and then this is the thing that does something. So now we've got something called message. Message will be the string that we typed into the text field. Now we do meteor.call, something called add message. So that meteor.call says run. Basically, think of it like an API call. So if this were REST, you would call an API maybe like a post or like a REST, like a post request back to your server by HTTP. Well, instead of that, the Meteor way of doing things is, well, there's a couple of ways you can do it, but what we're going to do here is we're going to call something called a Meteor method. Now, the first way to think of it is that Meteor method is like a server-side API call that can do whatever it wants. But there's a slightly important thing that's going to happen. In Meteor, you have something called latency compensation. So what this means is you can actually run code on the client side to handle the thing that's going to happen on the server, simulate the result in your UI, and allow it to look like the network round trip took 0 time. So this is something you get for free, and it's actually a pretty cool thing. So the code that's going to run on the server side, that's going to insert this stuff into the database, it actually runs on the server and on the client. And on the client side, we insert it into our local cache. The UI updates the way it should look. So for example, when you're using Facebook and you post a comment, you might be on a very slow connection, but it will always feel instantaneous. And any really well-polished app has probably done a lot of work to make that happen. And you also have to handle the case where, like the network got disconnected or there was some kind of failure on the server, and then be able to roll it back. So Meteor handles all of this for you. So meteor.call add message says, I want to call this Meteor method called add message. We didn't add it yet, so let's do that. It looks like this. Now this is going to go back in our main app. And actually, let's put it up here to be clear that it's running on both the client and the server. So, or it's defined on the client and the server. So it's not inside the isClient block. It's not inside an isServer block. It's actually on both. So here it is. It's called add message. It takes one parameter, which is a text, which is called text, and it's just going to be a string. We create a new message with the time, which is the new date, and the text, and we call messages.insert message. So remember when I did that in the browser console, messages.insert, it's the exact same thing, only now it's going to happen automatically. I think everything's hooked up, and this will probably work now. There we go, it works. So that is a fully cool. So that's a fully functioning chat app in very little code, built pretty quickly. It's quite easy to do that kind of stuff. Obviously, your real app is going to have like way more complicated stuff. And at this point, like I think we should stop. I can do two things. One, I can like really quickly add like login functionality using like Twitter OAuth, and I can do that in also very few lines of code, which is one of the things that I love about Meteor. But I would like to, rather than just like go blasting through tons of stuff, I'd rather you guys like get what I've done so far. So if you have questions, maybe now would be a good time. Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah. Which commands do you use to run the server?
To run the server? Right. At the very beginning, so you just type Meteor on the command line. So at the very beginning, I went into my console, and here we go. At the top of it, I just typed Meteor. So this is into the terminal, and just type Meteor at the shell. So I did two things. I typed Meteor create demo, which is the name of my app, and then it created a new directory with some default stuff in it, and then I cd into there, and then I just typed Meteor, and that runs the app. And then from then on, so this is a Node app. It's just running. It will just watch the files, reload, push changes down to the client, tell the client to reload, etc. And then you can see a bunch of times here, server restarted, so it restarts when there's changes. Yes.
So this is great for development workflow. How would you deploy this stuff in a production situation?
Like this, I would say Meteor deploy. What should we call it? React meetup demo. Now that'll take a minute or two. This is deploying to Meteor's free servers that they use. That's just for development. This is like the underlying infrastructure is actually the same as what their professional hosting is, but maybe I guess I should mention what that is. So they have something called Galaxy, which is a hosting service. It's like a platform as a service. So it's pretty much fine-tuned for hosting full stack JavaScript apps, well, Meteor apps specifically right now. And it's more like they manage the whole platform for you. So you don't have to go in there worrying about log files filling up with disk space or wondering if you've got like the right like XML parser clib installed or whatever, that kind of stuff. You don't have to worry about any of that. So. No, I mean a Meteor app is just a Node app, so you can deploy anywhere you want. Like you can build your own server on AWS or anywhere else. You can deploy it to Heroku. You can deploy it to DigitalOcean. Yeah, so it's just a Node app. But now it's still going, uploading. It'll be there in a second. So it's deploying to React Meetup React Meetup demo.meteor.com. Not ready yet. When it's, we'll go check it out in a second. Any questions? Yes, in the back.
Like tangentially related, do you think there's any chance of, because you were talking about Meteor sort of moving into this role as like a curator of best tech in the JavaScript world?
Yeah.
Do you think there's any possibility of Webpack being brought into that curated part?
Right. So if Meteor is becoming more of a curation of like the best things, is Webpack going to be brought in? They were investigating that. I don't know yet. I think not. It looks like not at this point because I think they actually started out assuming that it was going to be, and then I don't know all the details, but I think they found that that there was something that they were going to be able to do better, and so I think it's not. But I am 100% sure that like whatever they have will be kind of like the same performance, where there's a hot code reloading. It doesn't rebuild the whole thing and restart. It just like updates the module that changed. So, which I don't personally care what the build, as long as the build stuff works, like that's good in my personal opinion. You can though, like there are a lot of people right now using Webpack with Meteor. So there's like a couple of recipes to like roll your own. Basically, you're replacing kind of a core part, and you're using your own build. So you can totally do that. But as far as whether it'll be a core thing or not, I don't know. I think not at this point. Okay, so here we go. There we go. So that's React Meetup demo.meteor.com. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. Cool. Yeah. Load test it. It's probably not like highly production. So there you go. And there's no security on this. There's no security on that at all. Nobody's logging in or doing anything. So we could pretty quickly add Twitter like auth to that as well. There was another question kind of in the middle here. Yeah.
Why React over Blaze?
Why React over Blaze? Well, because this is a React meetup. No, because I think like at OKGrow we're kind of switching towards React for new projects as well, and that's what we're doing now for everything new. And I mean I guess that's a really big question, but I like React because I think, first of all, there's an enormous momentum behind it, which is not the reason why I like it, but that means that there's going to be a lot of tools, like great like development tools, like the whole ecosystem is becoming very mature, and there's a lot of stuff that's going to be a lot more development energy is being put into that than what the Meteor development group can put into Blaze. So they're just kind of like, well, we should just focus on the parts that are really needed and missing and take whatever is best. So that's kind of why they have made the choice to, I think, they haven't totally, well, they kind of announced that they were going to deprecate Blaze at one point, and then they went back on it. But I wouldn't start I would start a new app with React, and the reason why is because I think it's it's just a great tool. It's a good thing. I like it. And there's tons of like ecosystem. The ecosystem for it is just becoming really mature. So that's why. Yeah. Excellent. Yes?
So I just noticed that you didn't do any requiring or importing files.
Right.
So
Yeah.
is it that the build system sort of...
Yes, I didn't do any require, import, export. Nothing about modules here, so obviously everything is imported. You're going to see a couple of global variables that are just there. The module system, like the ES6 modules are coming in the 1.3, the next version of Meteor, which is right now in pre-release, so you can be using it. But it'll be out in about a month or so. So it'll just be the native ES6 JavaScript modules. So yeah, so like the next time I do this demo, it'll have modules in it. it's also kind of convenient when you're starting something really small and quick like this to make it work. So in this case, it's just everything is imported. Yes?
Is it possible to hook into should component update with React Meteor?
Yes. So it's still React. You've still got the same, all the lifecycle hooks that you have with React. So you can still use that.
In your example, it was all the data was available at this.data.messages, but would you have access to that in the should component update, like when there's new data incoming?
I'm actually not sure. I'm not sure. This will be, so if you want reactive stuff to happen with the data, that's where you'll have to put it, but yeah, I'm not totally sure. But all the lifecycle, all the React lifecycle functions are available. Okay. Any other questions? Cool. Okay. So I don't know. That's probably a good place to leave it. Like the next place that we could easily go with it would be, which I don't think we should do right now, but just to like the interesting thing is that I can add like OAuth login to that with very few lines of code and end up having like Twitter auth and the security that we're missing here by publishing all the data. So that's it. Thank you. Dare I look what's on here?
Well, I have a quick question actually. So, big fan of Meteor. When I remember doing the Discover Meteor book, you would handle the client-side state that wasn't actually being saved to the server by creating a Mongo collection in the client side of things.
Right.
Is that being offloaded now as a reactive?
Nope, that is still happening, and so I'll just show you where that is. So back in this file, demo.jsx, which is the kind of the main file for this app, this line here, like where it creates a new Mongo collection, that runs on both the client and the server. So on the client side, it is creating the Mongo collection exactly the same way that you would have seen it in any other Meteor stuff before. And so when something new gets inserted into this collection, it gets synced to the client, and it's there in mini Mongo, which is the cache. And when we do, whoops, wrong one. When we do messages.find.fetch here, it's querying that client-side cache.
I'm going to refine my question a little bit. For stuff that's like client-side only, so one thing that I'm thinking of is like an error message. So there's this like error flash kind of thing where it's not a server and a client state. It's just client state.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But you're using like a Mongo collection completely on the client. Would now, because React has its own sort of state management thing, be more like you consider putting that more in React now, or is it?
I think you might still consider doing that. So the question was, like, you can create client-side only collections, which are the same as this cached version of the server collection, but you can create ones that just don't get synced back to the server. So it's like an object store in the browser only that you can query with the query language and stuff, which is still a nice thing to do. Yeah, so like if your app the state is being managed by mini Mongo and Tracker, the normal kind of Meteor, the rest of the stack below React, as opposed to using Redux, then I think, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to still use. I would still use that right now. If you are taking out more of that, or like using less of the Meteor stack and using like Redux instead, you can take all of that out on the client side. So you can have your client side using Redux for your client state, and then yeah, at the moment, like, we still build apps like this because it's just a lot quicker right now. I really like what I see in Redux. I haven't used it that much, so I don't know. I think right now, because my preference is to get stuff working not and not spend too much time, or I don't like to like vary way far off the beaten path, because it's just a lot more efficient for us to kind of stick with the standard stack as much as possible. I think over the next like year or and beyond, a lot of those things will become a lot less work to integrate. And right now, it's not that it's hard to do. It's just that you're not getting stuff. Like, the reason why I like to use Meteor is because it just gives me a lot of stuff for free, and so I like to stick with that for now. Like, I'm really biased towards just getting stuff. I shouldn't say just. I'm really biased towards getting stuff working very quickly, and then changing things based on like a real need in the app. So, but I think that those sort of options are becoming more and more, will become more easier and easier to use. So, hope that answered it. Cool. All right.